Hi, everyone. Welcome to Sci-Fi-Sci-Earth. I'm your host, Becky Escamilla, and today's guest is author Mike Sims. Welcome to Sci-Fi-Sci-Earth, Mike. Thank you for accepting my invitation.
Well, thank you for having me.
You're
I'm
welcome.
very excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm so glad. Before we really get into things and talking about your books, for those listeners who haven't read your bio info on our intro post, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I've been writing short stories since I was in my teens, but in 2015, I finally published my first novel, and I've been writing a series of books called the Vickie series of books, and trying to get those publicized and out there. And this is it started out kind of as a hobby for me. I've worked in the IT field for many years, but I really want to get into writing books full time, and I got a lot of starting to get some traction on them, and here I am.
Nice, nice. It's so difficult to get into publishing a book. So when it came to publishing, was it difficult to get your book published? And how did you go about getting a publisher?
Well, it's like a lot of people when you're new, you don't know where to go and what to do. It's you read a lot of blogs and so forth, and of course there's the big five publishers, which is your perceived goal is to get published by them because they're the gatekeepers to the bookstores and everybody, but they won't talk to you unless you have a literary agent. So I solicited my book on its merit to 500 literary agents and was turned down by every one of them.
Oh my gosh.
Even I had a celebrity friend of mine that actually wrote a book and had a literary agent, and I asked her, could you recommend me to your agent? She said, sure, and was still turned down. So I realized that I was more likely to find Bigfoot than I was a literary agent. So,
Right?
so I went ahead and I solicited my book to what they call second tier publishers, which don't require agents, and they're kind of on the cusp of being a publishing service and a publishing house. And didn't hear anything for a long time, so I self-published on Amazon, which was free and easy. And then I got contacted by Tate Publishing, and they said, we want your book. But they charge a retainer, a large retainer, which I totally agree with their business model because they're incurring all the cost and everything. But so I negotiated with them, and they took my book, and they had me going and had it published. I worked out two more books in the series right after that, and then they fell into legal problems.
Oh.
And so now the founder and his son that was the CEO are facing 8 counts of felonies for all kinds of things.
Oh
and,
my gosh.
And they have 30,000 authors that were with them that are now, lost in limbo.
Right.
So I went ahead and started my own publishing company.
Okay.
And realized I could do all this stuff myself. I learned enough from them and others that, now I can do it all.
Right.
And I had the sage advice from several best-selling authors, Vickie and Greg Copeland, and also the Houston Writers Guild, which were instrumental in helping a lot of filling in a lot of the gaps I didn't know.
Good. Well, sorry to hear about your previous publisher, but glad it led you to opening your own publishing company. Now, for all those other writers out there that were part of the previous company, have they or have you considered signing them on with you and publishing their books?
It's something that I wanted to do. I'm not prepared fully to do that yet. I do want to publish other people's stuff, and I want to do it in a way to where they're empowered to control their destiny. All I do is hold their hands to the point to where they get their book out there, and then they're in full control of marketing and doing whatever they want with it. As opposed to Tate and several others, they want to control every aspect of your book.
Right. Yeah.
And a lot of them were left out, like I say, left in the cold, and were surprised when Tate went under, because then they couldn't get their files.
Oh my gosh.
But however, this was back in January when they finally fell apart. But I left them in October because I was watching them very closely, and they had all their printers and printing equipment repossessed by Xerox for lack of payment.
Wow.
And so I was monitoring them to see where they were going to start printing their books at. And they went to Ingram, and Ingram is a de facto distribution network for book publishing. And when I saw that happening, I knew their end was near. And so I contacted them, told them I wanted to leave. And the VP of sales contacted me, and, why do you want to leave? And I said, well, because you just went to Ingram, and you're going to make the books returnable, and which means that they allow bookstores to buy their books on credit, but whatever they don't sell, they return the books, and Tate would have to pay for. And I knew that 30,000 authors, and who knows how many books each, when they make them returnable, in 90 days when they get the bill from Ingram and they don't pay it, they're done. And that's exactly what happened. So.
Wow. Well, it's a good thing you were keeping an eye on it, because a lot of authors don't take the extra time to do that. And now look, for many of them, they were just ill prepared. Oh my gosh.
It's a horror story. It's a sad story, because I've met some of them personally, some of the other authors, and they some of them have spent thousands and thousands of dollars on media packages and still didn't get any of books, and still haven't got their files. But the Attorney General of Oklahoma is devoted, has actually brought so many people just to deal with Tate. It's incredible. Lots of complaints.
Wow. And that's where they're located, in Oklahoma?
In Mustang, Oklahoma, yes. And, and like I say, I've talked to some of the other people in the family that own the place and ran the place, and they were very nice people and legitimate people. I personally didn't have a problem with them, but I just knew that they weren't, that what they were doing was killing their business.
Right. They weren't able to hold on. Wow.
Yeah, they were in a death spiral.
Yeah, that's something. Well, the good news is you got out in time. Most excellent. Now, for those listeners who are new to learning about you, can you tell us about each of your books, the titles, and briefly what they're about?
Yes, the first book I wrote was a book called Victim, and like all my books, they started out as short stories. It started out in 2005. I wrote this short story popped in my head about a woman that named Vickie, that she was a victim of assaults, and she was attacked by a guy named Tim, and she decided to revenge herself upon him over years and in a dark comedy way. And so I wrote the story, and as I wrote it, it took a life on its own and became very dramatic, and it ended totally different than what I originally anticipated. And I stared at it and said, this is not a short story. This is a real book. But I had no idea how to write a book, so it sat for 8 years. And then one day it just popped in my head, I know how to write this story now. So I wrote it over 2 years of time, different drafts, and had my friend Nicole Antoni, that was just my cheerleader in life, and she was helping with the editing, and she had her mom, who was a literary professor, retired, help with it, and then I had other people contribute that I asked that were lawyers, and another lady that was a famous astrophysicist that had been on TV a number of times contributed to another character. And it came together, and I that's when I started submitting it around, And when it finally got published and people started reading it, the first question was, how did this Vickie character become like this? And you briefly touched on it, but we want more. So I decided to write a series. So I wrote the Maid Victim, which is short for Vickie and Tim, is actually book number 4 out of a 5-book series. And I started writing Vickie, which starts her life from age 8 to her first jobs out of college. And then followed it with Valkyrie, which is her taking on an evil corporate game and in helping with a major issue with a megachurch. It's kind of a 2-part story. And now I'm almost done writing the between it and Victim, the next book, which is going to be called Violet, and where she attracts the attention of a very powerful, old money, wealthy, politically powerful woman that becomes her nemesis.
Oh, wow.
And I created that character because I actually had 2 guys literally chew on me for hours about how strong Vickie was, that she was too strong, too smart. And I was like, how can it be? And they were like, well, she's not nice. I said, I never said she was nice. She's not politically correct. She just dispenses her brand of justice on people and things that she thinks deserve it. And so I created Violet to show what a really bad person is. so they'll quit complaining about Vickie.
Right. You've got something new to complain about. That'll
right.
Do you have any future plans? Because this sounds so interesting. So I already want to see this in film somewhere. Do you have any future plans, actually, to bring your books to life in the form of a miniseries or a movie?
Well, yeah, actually, when I finish the series, the final book, which will actually show where Vickie, what this has all been leading up to, what her final destiny really is, what life has prepared her for. And it's originally, the book was actually meant to be a screenplay. And we were trying to show it, me and Nicole, out there as a TV series and push it as that. So that was already in place. But nobody's going to invest in anything unless you're a bestseller and you've got a big audience and everybody loves it. So it's got to build some traction, but we'll keep pushing it and trying, and because I think it would make an excellent TV series, very powerful TV series. It's I've had a lot of people tell me a lot of stories, their personal stories after reading my books that was very humbling that I'd actually moved them that much.
Oh, very inspirational.
Yeah.
Now, because you do have a day job, plus you are an author, how does your family feel about your being an author?
It's, my wife and daughter have been, been a tremendous inspiration to me in backing me and believing in it, in everything I've done with the book writing. It's inspired, my book writing has actually inspired some of my family members to write books. And my daughter especially has started writing her first book at 13.
Oh, wow.
And she's now got 2 books, The Gift and Germs, out, and writing a 3rd. And so I'm very proud of her. And my wife Melinda has got a marketing degree from University of Houston, and she's been instrumental in marketing and getting a lot of good ideas out there, getting it known. Yeah. So it's a winning team behind me. I can say that.
That's excellent. And I'm so happy to hear that your daughter is an author too, and that you're able to inspire her in that manner. And not only just inspire her, but help her to actually get a published book done. Because it's, as you say, it's a difficult road, but she's learning now, and she's getting her books finished, and that's good. Um, for people who are interested in purchasing your books, where can they go to order? And are your daughter's books available too, or are they going to be available soon?
No, they're available. They everything's available online on any Barnes and Noble, Books a Million, any bookstore online, Amazon. They I have like I say, you get them anywhere online. I don't have them in bookstores because it's hard to get them in bookstores, but but you can get them in any version, paperback, audio, hardcovers. I just released the audiobook version of Vickie, and Victim is coming out soon, which was narrated by Brenna Hobbs, excellent voiceover actress. And also, some of my books are being translated in other languages. Right now, one of them is in Spanish and the other one's in Portuguese, but they're being translated in Japanese, Italian, right now.
That is amazing. Well, congratulations on that.
Well,
Did you
thank
get
you.
a service to do it, or how'd you go about getting it translated?
Yes, there are some services with Amazon and other companies that you can share royalties with the people that are doing the work with you,
Mhm.
and it's you get the right person, and it just comes together, and it's a nice service.
Nice, nice. Well, when it comes to writing books, you've got this series of books, but do you ever think you're going to get into writing any sci-fi or UFO books? I mean, many people may not know this, but you too have worked actually within the UFO field. I mean, it's definitely quite an interesting place. But can you share a little bit with us about your past history in the UFO field, and if you're ever going to release any books along those lines?
Yeah, I actually had some idea for a UFO related novel, and my based on my take and theories on the phenomena. And it's my brother Daryl is a full-time UFO researcher and quite famous in that field, and he's been all over the world and worked with governments and everything else. So I used to work with him in the mid '90s, managing his marketing and websites, and that was quite interesting. And he's being behind the scenes of watching him on his TV shows and things. But yes, I do have some plans to write a variety of different novels, and not just. I actually have another one that I'm almost completed with called Southern Cross, which is it's a novel about a boy, a poor boy that lives in a village in Mexico that discovers something that changes the world. And it's from a short story I wrote many years ago, and everybody loved it, that I shared with on a blog a long time ago. So I'm very proud of that one.
Well, and in later on when you hear the archives of this show, because you will, everything you talked about, everything was perfect, and sound quality, everything, until we started talking about UFOs. Then we started getting all this interference. So you're going to hear all this sounds like computer, little sci-fi robotic sounds. I did not do that. Wherever it came from, it just happened.
They're interfering.
Right? It's just a show, people, a show. But I just had to say that because when we go to hear the archives, you're going to hear it. I mean, flawless until you started talking about UFOs, and then that was it.
Yeah, they're messing with us.
Right. Have you ever had an actual UFO experience?
I've seen probably a dozen, unidentified things. Whether what they were or not, I don't know. But I've seen some very unusual things, and the most unusual is around when I was about 10 years old, and I was standing in the middle of the road and had a feeling that said, "Don't turn around." And I disobeyed it because it didn't make any sense. And turned around and I saw a triangular craft that was about 30 feet in diameter, silently moving slowly over my house, and had the back of it had two medium-sized red lights on the ends, a very large red light in the middle, and four white lights in between the red lights, and they were pulsating back and forth. And I watched it as it disappeared past the house, and then I ran behind her house. We had a sun deck that was very tall. I stood on, and I could see this thing moving at an incredible amount of speed off into the distance in the horizon. I told my dad about it. My dad was a Baptist preacher, and he, of course, he didn't believe in UFOs. And I was very adamant that I did see this and this did happen. And so he asked me to draw it. And I drew it, and he looked at it and said, "Well, there it is. That's a jet." And I said, "I don't think it's a jet. It would have tore the roof off the house, and it was moving slowly and silently."
Right.
And so he actually contacted my older brother Daryl to come down and straighten me out. And so when I told Daryl the whole thing in front of the family, and that's when Daryl started revealing some of his experiences. So it was not a good day for Dad.
I imagine so, being a Baptist preacher.
Yeah. There was only two definitions, and that was angels and demons, and so it had to be demons. And I said, maybe Dad, but I don't know. All I know is I saw this. So.
Right. And what's interesting, you had a telepathic communication from whoever it was.
It was a parental feeling. It was a parental type thought in my head telling me not to turn around, and that's what didn't make logical sense to me. Why would something be telling me as if it was my parent? Right.
That interesting, very interesting. After that, I like to ask this question because a lot of experiences happen when we're children, and UFO experiences to certain individuals. And as children, we're so pure and innocent, and we just don't have any preconceived notions about a lot of things. So when we experience something after that, and I say we because I've experienced things. I started as a child too. I mean, after that, you have more experiences. What happened to you after that? Did you have strange dreams? Did they visit you? Did you start to see other activity on occasion? Or did life forms, while you were awake, actually come into your presence? Not so much like physically, but where they would just show themselves in a spirit form.
No, I didn't have any of those kind of experiences. I did see other UFO type things that were very strange. And there was, at that time when I was a kid in Lago Vista outside of Austin, there was a UFO researcher that was by the name of Ray Stanford. And he had a thing called Project Starlight International. And he was kind of mimicking Dr. Ellen J. Hynek and Hynek's grad students that followed him, Project Blue Book. This guy was actually had government grant money and quite a bit, and had grad students and was doing a lot of serious research. And he was based out of Austin, and I used to bug him to death as a kid, and as I did Bergstrom Air Force Base. Whenever I saw something unusual, I'd call them and ask them their radar unit, what is that? So I'm sure they got tired of me. But I was fascinated with the subject when I was a kid, and but Ray Stanford had speakers, and my mom was gracious to take me to these meetings, and I got to meet Bruce Maccabee for the first time. And Bruce Maccabee was a government photography expert that had a New Zealand UFO event filmed from a plane that he was going around and showing. And this was a very, it was very enlightening. Ray was a very interesting guy. I think that I had heard rumors that he had kind of fell on the wayside and through some controversy. But then later went back to his first love, which was archaeology, and ended up discovering some bone or something that actually changed some aspects to evolution. So he kind of got vindicated at the end, I guess, of his career.
Very interesting. Did you find yourself being pulled more into, well, I would say it, because once you start with UFOs, I mean, you just can never leave the field. Even though you go and write other books and things like that, did you find yourself working in the field? You ended up doing some work for your brother, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, he back in the mid '90s, he had a lot of popularity with some his implants studies and certain objects, and there was even an alleged piece of Roswell craft that he was working with that that we weren't sure what was, but he had studied, and so he was very popular, and at the in that time, and was speaking everywhere. And was getting, like I say, he was getting reports from even governments asking him what his take is on these different events. So he was extremely busy, and I was very fortunate to be able to do work with his videos and his website and marketing and stuff, and help him coordinate with these things, and then I hand it off to other people later. As I moved into my own arenas of things, but yeah, it's to me it's a fascinating field. I my hat's off to Daryl, making a career and being able to successfully make a career out of it. He's been on TV shows, and he's had his own series for a while called Uncovering Aliens. But I don't know how he does it. It's a lot of energy to do that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, it is. Now, going back to your childhood, because you did mention your dad was a Baptist minister, and did you ever find? Because I was raised in church I was raised by my guardians, my sister and her husband, and he was the music director for the church. And, they always try to have you have to uphold a certain standard because you're always being watched all the time. And as a child growing up, it is very interesting type of lifestyle. But did you ever find that you were exposed to any type of paranormal activity or anything like that, other than a UFO sighting, that you couldn't really discuss with your dad?
Well, the UFO thing was very concerning to him. He humored me for a little while about it. He showed me a passage in Ezekiel of a wheel within a wheel, and he said, there's your UFO, and I started, and it actually put me on a track to kind of explore some things. And then I would start asking him questions. Why does this say this and this say that? And he was he became, like I say, he became very concerned, especially with the sighting thing. But most of the events that I personally experienced was seeing things happen in the sky. Later, like in my 20s, I worked at was driving down the road in town in Austin, and there was a silvery object in the sky. It was a partly cloudy sky and heavy traffic, and I thought it was, just at first glance, it was a helicopter, one of those glass, bell-shaped helicopters, and until the thing flew down very quickly and then straight back up through the clouds, and the entire line of traffic stopped. It shocked everybody. So those are the kind of things that are a little hard to explain, whether you believe in them or not. You know.
Right. So when it comes to your character in your book, do you suppose is her nemesis going to be like a UFO person? I'm just curious. Just curious.
Well, actually, you know, as kind of a homage to my brother, I did have Vickie in the book Vickie see a UFO, and one of her people that helped her along was a professor of astronomy, and and he tried to explains things in a very supernatural way that she's not used to. Vickie, the character Vickie, is kind of agnostic, kind of you know, she doesn't quite believe, she doesn't really know or sure. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. You know, she's kind of the middle ground on a lot of things. But everybody around her is the extremes and beliefs of all different viewpoints.
Interesting. Now, I've been reading your Bible, and even growing up, you've had very interesting different lines of work. I read something about a protein powder. Can you tell us a little something about that?
Oh yeah, I worked at I was in a multi-level marketing thing called Neolife, and it was I had a very interesting experience. I was a teenager, and they had one of the things I saw was a protein powder, and there was a company that was sold a weight loss chain of weight loss centers, and I managed to get one of the regional managers on the phone and told her that I had a protein powder that was superior to everything on the planet. I just was bragging about it, and she says, "Oh, really? Well, send me a can of it. We'll find out." I said, "All right then." So I sent her a can, and she actually called me back and said that your stuff is better than what we have, and can we relabel it? And I was like, I'm 16 years old. And I was like, let me talk to my people, and I'll get my people to talk to your people. And so the next weekend, I happened to be went to Dallas. Neolife had a big seminar there with my family, and I met the owner of Neolife, and I told him what I did, and he laughed so hard, and then he wrote down on a piece of paper the president of the manufacturing facility for the protein powder, and he says, "I will talk to them." He says, "They'll be expecting your call. You give them the information, and they'll take it from here." And they actually worked a deal, and it started selling for a little while. Unfortunately, the weight loss center place went bankrupt, the whole chain, but I did make the sale. So
nice. I saw you made a good commission for that. And
yes,
at 16, that's very good. 8 years before that, I saw that you landed a job in a computer company. When it came to computers, because that's a young age when it comes to computers, and you're able to work on it and things like that, did it just come naturally to you? And do you feel, do you still work with computers?
I still work with them. The job you're talking about was actually in Lago Vista, and I had a good friend, Todd, that his dad owned a computer company, and I used to go visit the computer company and ask the programmers questions, and his dad offered me a summer job to work there. And so they sold these computers called TI 990s, which were basically $10,000 each, and they were huge and heavy. And my job was to put them together and test them and see if they were working. copy the manuals, put the software together, and then ship it to the customer. And this was the summer of my 8th grade year. So I had a lot of responsibility, and he was selling about 50 of these things a month. And it was a great experience. It was my first real IT job. And the owner actually taught me basic programming, and I made a couple of games. I made my own blackjack game, and even made my own Star Wars game. So I probably made one of the first Star Wars computer games ever made. So it was kind of funny. But they after the summer, I took away a lot of valuable experience, and I've been in the computer industry in my adult life pretty much ever since. The Radio Shack and Dell computers, and on and on.
I find that interesting because if you look at 8th graders at the time you're in 8th grade, you had to have been excelling much quicker and in a much faster rate, because I noticed this about, and I don't have all the numbers in front of me, but when children are exposed to UFO activity, to begin with, you're exposed for a reason. You're always chosen. But even so, you excel in a lot of things a lot quicker, and you're really intelligent in those things. And as you move on in life, as you get older, at some point you're able to utilize those skills for when they need you to, in whatever way, be it to inspire people, help people. It's interesting, very interesting. That's why I want to point those two things out, because you did accelerate in an advanced manner, more than children your age at that time, or even teenagers. And you're just very smart. What can I say?
Well, I appreciate it. I've been called many other things, but smart usually is followed by words after that. But yeah, I appreciate it anyway. But yeah, I've had an aptitude, I guess, for computers, and I've always worked with them in one way or another. And that's really helped me, culminating even in the publishing, because I can do book covers. I know how to use Photoshop and know how to make videos. I've made my own book video trailers, and so it's fascinating to me.
Yeah, it helps you along the way. And I absolutely just love your site. It's very, very nice site, and it's easy to navigate, and I really enjoy graphics there. And is that your logo? The wings with the heart. I just love that. And
that's actually that was the first logo, the first book that I actually designed. I wrote the book with Tate, but I actually designed the cover because I wasn't happy with what they were doing with the covers. And the first two covers, Vickie and Victim, they actually designed. And I have the rights to them, so I continue to use them. But I designed that logo and bought the rights to the wing design, and then I modified it into the helmet into a shape of a heart, because that's the personification of Vickie, the character. And also, it falls in the symbology of the character, because I wanted her name to be a V name, because V, the shape of a V, is a very ancient feminine symbol. And even the Valkyrie symbol is the shape of a V. And that was all done intentionally, because Vickie is a very strong feminine character, very indomitable, powerful.
It's amazing symbolism. It goes all behind this too, because people just look at it and okay, they don't really take into consideration, and normally wouldn't. But it's amazing, and I'm glad you shared that, because it's just amazing, and how much thought went into your book, not just writing it, but also in the titles, the cover, the artwork and that logo. That's an amazing logo. It's an amazing symbol.
But thank you.
It'd make a
You
good
know,
tattoo. Of course,
oh yeah,
be a temporary one.
oh yeah,
A
yeah.
temporary edible one,
Well,
possibly.
I even have it as a sticker on the back of my car too. So
Right,
it's
right.
it's very
Oh,
it's very eye catching.
yeah, very nice. Did you do your website? I see the rose petals falling. It was just so soothing. Just
Yeah,
amazing.
actually, the first two book trailers that show up on the website were made by Tate, and they, that's very nice. But the one with the rose petals falling on the rose was the first book trailer that I made, and it was narrated by Eva Campbell Morales, which is uh, a pretty well known voice actress in her own right, and did a lot of commercials, particularly around in Texas, for a lot of chains of stores.
Mhm.
And she did a phenomenal job doing the narration on it.
It's nice. When it comes to books, I know we've talked about this before the show, but I'd like to see if you could share it with listeners. Your books have, and I know you can't name names, but that's okay. But your book, you've got some awesome, amazing friends who are very supportive of you, and will put your book in the hands of some amazing people. Can you share a little bit with us about that?
It's Nicole was she she's been evangelizing my books from the beginning, and she's an amazing friend. I have I over a tremendous amount for her enthusiasm and her belief. Even more belief in my books than I have at times. But she's an inexhaustible star of light, trying to get them out there. And I just it's incredible. But the one of the big things for me is Mary Beth and Melinda, my wife and daughter, have been behind me and believing, even through some of the most hardest of times, standing by and staying with us, staying and keeping me, writing and keeping me on the course to doing all this. And she's, Melinda's she reads all the chapters as they're written, and she has no, she's my biggest critic, and and one of my biggest fans as well. But she'll tell me, she'll tell me if this is absolute crap, or this is good. And she's expressed her concerns over certain aspects, because these books they deal with a lot of harsh subject matters. And we've had one instance where I was Vickie was trying to goat somebody into a fight with her, to expose how mean this person was. And she made some very bad remarks against this person's lifestyle. And Melinda was like, "Wait a minute here. You're going to have people protesting you if you put this in here." And so I said, "Well, let's put it to a focus group." So I got friends of mine that were had this lifestyle, and some that weren't, and the ones that weren't said, "We know it's harsh, but it's germane to the story, and we understand it." The ones that had that lifestyle that was slurred against said, "That was absolutely the funniest thing we've ever heard. Don't you dare take it out of that book. We love it, and this is it's important, because you're bringing to attention a lot of issues that we face, and it's important." And I said, "Well, thank you."
Ah, amazing, amazing. Well, we're glad she threw things into us.
Yeah.
I saw a picture on your website. You got to meet Val Kilmer?
Yes, he's doing a tour of his Mark Twain show, and he doesn't do the live show anymore, but he shows a film, a 90-minute film of one of his live shows, and then he comes out before and after, and does a Q&A. So we had a chance to meet him, and I gave him a copy of Victim, and it was he was very gracious and very nice, and it was very nice to meet him.
That's nice. I see his socks.
Yeah, that was fortuitous. He's wearing the color of my books. I tell people to be prepared for my book.
Well, it looks great. The whole photo, all of you look great in this photo. And I just think it's so standout, You got your cover and then his socks and shoes. Very cool. Very, very cool. That's so nice to take the photo with you and talk to you. Nice. Have you heard any feedback from him as of yet? If so.
Yeah, I don't know if he read or not. I know he's very, very busy doing his tours and stuff. But I've had some feedback from some people that are known that have read some of my books, and from everybody from some over country singers to actors, and it's very humbling that they have actually taken an interest in and appreciated it. Very humbling.
And about your parents, are they still living? Number one, and number two, if they are, thankfully, have they read your books?
It's my dad passed away when I was 16 of ALS, and but my mom, she's read my books, and she's she likes them, and she hasn't. She looks forward to anything I write, and reading them. But she's I'm really happy with the support I get from family members, because some of them don't read this kind of genre stuff, and it's not their type of books, but they give it an earnest read and give me an honest opinion of what works and what doesn't work, and I mean, how can you ask for anything else?
Right. Has she become more popular among her friends because you're a published author? You know how things can be.
Yeah, it's people ask, family members ask, what about what's going on and everything. And so I hear about that sometimes. Aww. But and again, that's very humbling that they take an interest in it. And I'm very fortunate with a great family.
It's good, because you really do need some good moral support, and it is important to have, especially family, to be there with you to help see you through, because it is difficult. I mean, there's so many people writing books, and then trying to get people to read them. It's your work, and especially when you put years into it, it's just something that's awesome.
It's hard. It's I mean, they're basically about 700,000 books published a year. So you're a drop in the ocean. Most countries have about a 5% readership, except for China and India, which actually has a 10% readership. And you have those kind of statistics. You know that it's an uphill battle. There's a lot of brick and mortar bookstores that are failing, and even the publishing industry is taking a big hit. Things are changing quite a bit. Amazon is doing very well, though. They are doing a lot of things right in those ends to capture a lot of the business. Still, it is very, very hard to build an audience, to get people known. I mean, the key for any writer to get successful is to write a lot of books. You can advertise them to death, you can do all kinds of things, but you have to write books, because one book will catch on, and then everybody will start writing all the other ones that you wrote before that. And everybody thinks that I'm going to write this book, put it out there, and I'm going to make $1 zillion like J.K. Rowling or E.O. James or these people. And those are lottery winners. Those are the people that wrote something and then it just blossomed. But the chances of that happening is 1 in a zillion. So you just got to write a lot of books and enjoy yourself. It's all about having fun with it.
Do you find that you do better with word of mouth or the advertising?
Authors live and die by reviews. Even bad ones are better than none.
Right.
It's that's how people gauge whether to buy something or not. You're going to get bad reviews. You can't let it discourage you as an author. If you look at every book that is a classic today, and you look at the reviews when they first came out, almost every one of them were horrible.
Wow.
But they became classics eventually because the authors kept writing books and they built an audience, and somebody finally read it and got it. I understand what they're talking about. It's my writing style is very visual. It's not conventional like a lot of well-educated writers are, and I've never claimed to be a writer, so to speak, but more of a storyteller, because I have a general idea how the story's going to go, but when I get on the computer, put my headphones on, it plays like a movie, and I'm just dictating. I don't even know what the characters are going to say or do, except for the general storyline as it happens. So it takes a life on its own.
Right. I like that you say that, because when they do those kind of books, no matter how humble they begin, they have staying power.
Yeah.
It's like a certain energy about them. Now, with your first book, it like you said, it took a couple of years. Every book that has followed, have you found it to be less time in writing it now that you've pretty much found, like your niche, where it fits in? Uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain amount of learning curve, how to write. And like I say, it took me 2 years to write Victim. But the next book I wrote, Vickie, I wrote in 30 days.
Wow.
And Valkyrie, I wrote in 45 days. Because I already had the characters in my mind. I already knew what they were going to do, how the story was going to go. I already know how the fifth book is going to be like. And I even have a spin-off series that I'm going to do based on Vickie's granddaughter, a 5-book series on that. And I know how that entire series is going to go.
Just you talking about it, I can just feel a certain vibe, a certain energy. And that's amazing, because I don't always feel that with certain projects that other people have. It just really all depends. But when you feel that vibe, it's like you're on your way to something much greater, something much better, that you're going to be where you say you're going to be. And
Right.
The hardest part was over with the 2 years. And now, even though, you've got certain things in the works for people looking at your book for possibly making it into a movie in the future or a miniseries, it seems like it's just about to happen, like just right there. And that's what I like. I'm going to get into this series of yours, that's for sure. Most certainly.
Well, I hope it happens.
It feels like it's going to happen, and I'm usually not wrong with those vibes. So let's see when it happens. Just let me know, right? So you can come back to the show and say, hey, this is
you'll
what's
be the
happening.
first to know.
All right. I will so be going to watch.
I'll be announcing it on your show.
Right? Okay. Yeah, that's true. Now, when it comes to writing, do you have any any type of tips for writers out there who, I know you've been through discouragement and you've had your family there to help you and friends. If there's people out there who don't always have a support system, do you have some sort of advice for them, how to just continue on no matter what?
It's I've had everybody in the world has told me that they want to write a book, but they don't know how. And I said the way I see it is, if you're a hiker and you know that you've got to hike to this mountain, the first step to getting to the mountain is just starting to walk. Don't worry about failing. Just start walking. Just start writing. Just start putting sentences down. Don't worry about that they're grammatically wrong, or you're making mistakes, or it's not working out the way you thought. Don't get frustrated. Just write. Just put it down, and then you can work on perfecting it in drafts. You're gonna need to use an editor to polish it up. That can happen later, but you got to put the feeling down. And if you put the feeling down on in that book, it will convey to the reader. I don't know how, but it does. And it's you just gotta make the steps to do it.
It's interesting how you talk about words and how it conveys the feelings. It's amazing how written words can convey feelings and people can pick up emotions. As you were writing your book, first time out, even as you go back and do your drafts, did you ever get caught up with the emotion of the book, emotion of the character?
Get caught up with the emotionally with the character?
Yeah, where you feel what they're going through.
Yeah.
1 minute you forget it's a book.
Yeah, because like I say, it's playing like a movie, and there are literally times that I've sat there and just horrified of something that's going on, and empathizing and tearing up of something that's horrible, because like I say, the Vickie books are very harsh in instances, and there's a lot of actual real life experiences that have actually happened to people that I have permission to write about anonymously. So some of the events in there, and I've been told by some people that read it, that's all made up. You could never, that would never happen in reality. And I was like, actually, what you read did happen, and they are very real experiences, and some of them are very, very difficult. Particularly because there's some that deal with the issues of rape, and I had to be very, very careful of trying to convey the trauma and the feeling of that without making it something that would be a how-to guide or whatever. And I had two ladies that read my book, and they said that it was almost like reading their rape events and their life story. And it just and I was blown away, and they thanked me for writing that. And that to me gets very emotional.
Yes. That's true. Before we move on, for those listeners who are taking part in our telepathic transmission experiment, today's word is street. Now, back to you. Can you please, for our listeners, let them know what your website is?
It is www.mazzaroth.net. It's MAZZAROTH.net. It's my domain. Mazzaroth is actually the Hebrew word for the 12 signs of the zodiac. I've had for a long time, so that's the name of my publishing company and everything.
I'm glad you said that, because I was going to ask. Very interesting. Well, thank you so much for being here today as a guest. I'm so happy you accepted my invitation.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Is there anything you'd like to say in closing?
I greatly appreciate the opportunity to talk about my books and many other subjects. I don't get it very often, and I'm very grateful. Thank you.
You're welcome, and I'm glad you were here today. You are welcome back at any time, and do keep me posted on any updates. I'd
Will
love to
do.
see where series lands. I know I'm going to see it in a movie or TV somewhere. I just can hardly wait. Well, thank you so much, and thank you to everyone for listening today. Bye.